Final Fantasy XIV was first worked on back in the late 2004 and early 2005 under the codename of Rapture, after seeing the huge success of Final Fantasy XI, which was the most profitable Final Fantasy title in the series' history. And so in 2009 they announced FF14, but it's kind of crazy to me that FF11 came out in 2002, and somehow within the span of 3 years they are already working on the 14th. It was directed by Nobuo Kikumoto and produced by Hiromichi Tanaka, who both worked on FF11. In fact, Tanaka was basically the first Yoshipi, if you can call him like this. 3 months after the release of Final Fantasy XIV, Tanaka was replaced by Naoki Yoshida as the game received heavy criticism and was considered a financial loss for Square Enix. But what was wrong with the game? Why did it not work? There's so many players who said they wish they could try the old version, even in a sort of World of Warcraft classic type, but when it was brought up to Naoki Yoshida, all he said was nightmare. In this video, we are going to dive in the world of Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. When you start FF14, you could create a character, but only one, unless you paid an extra fee to your subscription. It seems to be a recurring thing where a lot of things in FF14 are basically things from FF11 that some people even say that FF14 is 11 with a graphic update. There's 5 race options that once again follow the FF11's footsteps. The Yer, the Elezen, the Lalafell, the Mikote, and the Rogadin. Mikotes could only be females and Rogadins could only be males. You could pick your height between tallest, tall, average, short, and shortest. It seems like there were only 3 voices per races, then you had to pick up an hairstyle among the very few options. And a bit forward you still had the face, eyebrows, eye shape, iris size, nose, mouth, which doesn't seem that different from FF14 now. Next thing however is very interesting. You had to pick up a class between Disciples of War, Magic, but also Land on Hand. Yes, you could go for a gathering or crafting class at the beginning, and they had this spell called Stone Throw that would stun the monsters for a few seconds so you can run away. The classes are just like every Reborn's release: Archer, Gladiator, Lancer, Marauder, Pugilist, Conjurer, Thaumaturge, the Crafters and Gatherers that we have as a friend now, minus Arcanist that was added in 2.0. And the last thing is you get to pick the city you want to begin in, unlike in current FF14. All had a breathtaking intro cutscene. For Ul'dah, you get to see Sancred at a parade where Flamin is dancing, but suddenly the Gobu let loose and starts chasing people. Sancred fights it, but it escapes and rushes toward Minfiya, who was just a kid, but before getting hit, her dad jumps in front of her and dies, which is mentioned in every Reborn story. For Limsa Lominsa, you're on a ship and the boat gets attacked by tons of monsters, kind of like the dungeon the Siren Song Sea, and Yashala is on that boat. And for Gridania, you walk in the forest when suddenly you see some sort of airship in the sky crash with black smoke. You run after it and you come upon Ida and Papalimo, laying in the flowers. But then a gigantic tree monster chases all of you as you run away, and even more mystical things happen, as the Muggles freeze time, does a parade and save all 3 of you. That is something that I regret about 1.0, where the cutscenes were insane and motion tracked, but motion tracking is quite expensive, so it makes sense that we don't have it too much, unfortunately. So where did things go wrong? Well, when Naoki Yoshida was first called, he tried the game and he barely could sit 5 minutes on it. The user interface was horrible, it was even complicated to just leave the game as a whole, saying that if you quit the game, it could lead to losing your character's save. Yoshipi realized that nobody in the dev team ever played World of Warcraft. Well, what people wanted from MMOs changed over time, and the game was very laggy for so many reasons. In 1.0, every servers were hosted in Japan, so if you lived in America or Europe, you would feel even more lags than normal. Some AoEs would appear 2 seconds after it started, so dodging it would be nearly impossible. On top of that, the game was overusing a script system which was heavy on the player's CPU but also the servers. There's this very known anecdote that even a flower pot had around 1000 polygons and used 150 lines of shader code, which is about the same as a player character. On a side note, the game looked gorgeous, look at Gridania here, but it seemed like no computers could stably run it with high frame rates. Even the video description says FF14 seems to run like crap on any PC lol, maybe a server-side problem. Along the many technical difficulties the game faced, it had a lot of redundant gameplay aspects, such as the anima. The anima was a teleporting system in 1.0. You could have up to 100 anima points at once, and teleporting costed 1 to 6 points. And you would generate 1 anima every 4 hours, so the players had to run across the maps, on foot, all the while avoiding monsters. Leveling up was limited, because if you gained the 500 experience cap, you would have to hope on another job. If you wanted to mail the materials on your items, if you mailed it more than once, your item could literally break. There's so many things I could tackle on about 1.0, but I'm going to mention a few more things. While I was writing this video, I came upon a website called Final Fantasy XIV cutscenes.com. I was amazed to see that someone recorded a bunch of cutscenes from the old game just for game preservation, but while I was scrolling on the page, something caught my eye. Keisha wrote, "When I began the combined scenario, I chose a Mikote as my path companion. Her name is Chesandriel. I wanted to give my character a sisterly sort of friend, but ended up with a slut." If you don't like it, don't blame me, blame the writers at Square Enix. When I read that, I was so confused. I was wondering what a path companion is and what did they mean. So I downloaded some footage and I really did not expect to see this. It seems like in the cutscene Fade to White, you get introduced to a path companion, which I'll get back to later. But one of the first few lines she says is, "I'm sure that knowing you will be more pleasurable," which seems totally normal and very nice of her. But when you go further, in the cutscene Future's Perfect, the path companion says, "Oh, you are in for such a dose of gratitude, you'll be grinning for a week. But first, we have a diversion to create, and I'm not sure taking our clothes off will work." This is wild. I did not know this was a thing, but apparently in 1.0 some NPCs were very explicit about having activities with you. If you want to see all the footage, you can find it on FinalFantasy14cutscenes.com. Huge thanks to Keisha Eldran for uploading it. Now, I was curious, what is a path companion? Going on the old Wikipedia pages, it showed that at some points you could pick a character from any races and genders available, give the character a name, and it basically become your duo, kind of like Ida and Papalimo. They have the same abilities as you do, which means the echo, and will appear in a lot of cutscenes. I find it fascinating because I never heard of it and it seems to be an insane idea, but it ended up redacted later. However, I'm very curious about something. We don't know what happened to them, which means maybe one day they could make a comeback as a normal character. Speaking of which, I really wanted to make a video about what happened to some of the NPCs from 1.0 that transitioned to 2.0 or later, because yes, some of them have an actual story growth, and if that interests you, make sure to subscribe to me, thank you! Which reminds me that Flamin in 1.0 has an actual husband who is Nielfren Todor. The guy seems really cool, but unfortunately we will never see him because he died in 1.0. Or maybe you could, just say the word in the comments that you want me to make the video for it. You could also see Louisoix in the cutscenes and in Gridania. And the last thing I would like to share is the final moments in 1.0, not really what happened because I already made a quick video about it, talking about the Great Gobu Wall and stuff, but the insane changes it has done to the environment. One notable thing is that there used to be a West Shroud. We don't have that anymore because if I remember correctly, the damages done from Dalamud breaking apart destroyed the West Shroud, and also unsure, but I believe the Oracles of Gridania casted a Glamour to hide the inner damages from the area, but you can see a bit of it in the second coil of Bahamut. But also there used to be a PvP map for the Feast called Lichen Wheat. I've been hoping to kind of see it come back to the game, even though it might not bring anything that crazy, but I heard there were some Raptors level 90s there, so I guess it would have been a perfect occasion, an excuse to bring it back to Downtrail. There's also a court test that was quite surprising. There was one gigantic map, which not only contained Falcon's Nest, which was added in Heavensward, but also Estina's village, which is known to have been destroyed by Nidhogg. And on top of that, the whole area was green. It had no snow. The snow came after the re-release, and it was explained that it was some aftermath of Dalamud, just like a lot of other areas such as Mordona. You could also see the bridge toward Ishgard, which looked very different from the version we know it as right now. But anyway, as we all know, towards the end of the game, a tiny red star appeared in the sky, which grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and became what we know as Dalamud. As I said, my other video talked about it, so I'm not going to go in depth, but along the Red Moon, a lot of things happened in the game. First, you could see Galleon airships flying around on almost every maps. But also, the climate change in the game made it so you could see really beautiful Aurora Borealis in the sky, even from Limsa Minsa. But yeah, I think I've covered most things that I wanted to talk about. If you have any questions, please do drop them in the comments and I could see into making a second video. But yeah, I would like to say a gigantic thank you to Leonzorus, who was way ahead of his time. When he learned that the game was shutting down, he started documenting things before they were lost, like locations, NPCs, cutscenes, and so on. It's insane to think that he did that in 2010 when YouTube was beginning to get popular, and he had more footage that was not released that he purposely uploaded recently so that I can skim through it and use it. So just for that, huge thanks to you, Leon. And with that, I really hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you all have a great day. It was Plushie. See you, bye.